Hey, everybody. Welcome to our first podcast here at Govbidpro.com. My name is Mike Menahem. I'm the founder and CEO of Govbidpro.com. What we want to do, let's jump right in. This is the podcast, for government contracting. Again, welcome. And if you've got any questions, feel free to email me at mike@govbidpro.com. Now, below here, you'll see two other podcasts plus the training manuals for this class, as well as podcast 2 and 3, and we'll have a few future podcasts later on as well. So let's begin. Why would you want to take your small business and go into government contracting? Well, first of all, it's a B2G, so it's a specific market called B2G, business to government. So you've got B2B and B2C, right? Business to business and business to consumer. So this is about government contracting and establishing a relationship with government agencies. So let's start with how are they split up? You've got federal government on one side, and then you've got state, local, and education on the other. That's also known as SLED. Let's start talking about the federal agencies. That includes your DoD, Defense Department, Homeland Security, DHS, the Post Office, the energy and education and the State Department. They all have employees that need products and services. And the government, by the way, buys on everything. So the first thing that you need to know in terms of from this overview perspective is that what you want to do is register your company to get what's called a CAGE code, CAGE. Some of you already have that. It's a CAGE code that stands for Commercial and Government Entities, CAGE. That's on your training manuals. Below here, there's PDFs with that. You can download those for free. So you want to register your company. It's free to do this on a website called sam.gov, sam.gov. And it takes a little bit of time, probably about a half an hour, 45 minutes, depends how fast you are, to register your company. And they're just making sure you're a company in the United States, no felonies or anything like that, and good past performance and good clear record, and they'll check. Next, once you get your CAGE code, now you're able to go on the plethora of websites out there that have government bids. There's so many different kinds. We can discuss we have trainings that we do that we discuss the different websites. So you go on the websites, and now let's talk about the process. Again, you can go on all these different sites that have the bids, and those bids, one of the first things that's cardinal rule is the deadline. The bid has a due date. Okay, so it could be due next Friday, and the government could change that. And in a future podcast, we'll talk about how the bids are constructed. But very important, the bids are have PDFs, and you can download those and look through the 20 or 30 or 150 page PDFs. And that's what takes the work, is to look through and comb through these RFPs, a request for proposal, or RFQ, a request for quote, okay, and then respond to them by a deadline. And you've got to get it in by the deadline. Okay, so the process is, number one, and you may have heard of this, a concept called bid capture. And what bid capture is to be able to go to these different websites and capture the RFP or RFQ, the request for proposal, request for quote, and capture it by meaning to decide whether you're going to pursue it or not, because it has a future due date, right? So the next step in the process on very skeletal terms is to be able to produce a proposal. And that's something that we do here. We also train you on how to do these proposals. We have templates available. Okay, and so you have to make sure you have all your submission requirements. So that's the second step, is to be able to create a proposal. Meanwhile, you have to keep an eye on the due date that could change, or any kind of modifications, and we'll talk about that in future podcasts as well, in terms of the modifications that could happen with this RFP or RFQ. All right, why would you want to do this? Okay, and you've got a small business and you want to dedicate a certain amount of time to your to government. So you've got federal and you've got state, you've got the universities, you've got police departments, you've got libraries, you've got all these things. Well, the main question here is, and the main answer really, is that the government is not going anywhere. The federal government's always going to have a budget. Doesn't matter who's in the White House. This has nothing to do with politics, but there's always going to be a budget. and look at the amount of spending. Just look at the news, how much spending goes into these government agencies. So government spending is always going to be there. That's what we're going to talk about. That's been the overview. We're going to stop here and go to podcast 2. We're going to dive in a little bit more about the bids and some of the back office contract support that we do. If you've got any questions, feel free to email me at mike@Govbidpro.com, or just give us a call here, 505-585-1749. Thanks very much. Thanks for joining us here in this podcast. Go ahead and go below here and check out podcast number 2.